Hey, it's the podcast guy.
Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's the Sutton Podcast.
And there it is! Sutton United at the GM Vauxhall Conference have put out First Division Coventry City, winners of the FA Cup themselves less than 2 years ago. And what a moment to enjoy for the fans of this Surrey side. They've had their moments before, but never one like this. But the whistle goes down. Delight for Sutton United. Sutton United from the National League are through to the last 16 of the FA Cup. No longer English football's perennial non-league club. A 123-year crescendo reaches a new peak for Sutton United, who are promoted to the Football League for the first time.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's the Sutton Podcast in association with Lucky Star Gin. I'm your host Mike, and with me on our panel, flying solo today, is Mark. In this episode, we're going to be discussing the point on the road at Oldham and look forward to another midweek trip to Gateshead. Some of us are looking forward to a midweek trip. I'm not. We love hearing from you. Join the conversation, stay connected, follow us on social medias at Sutton Podcast. Give us your thoughts, give us your ideas, tag us in it. Just the more you tag, the more exposure I get, and the algorithms love me. Big shout out to everyone who does it regular basis. I obviously haven't said that for a few weeks, so thank you again. Mark, just as you've taken a sip of drink,
right.
How are you since we've last spoke?
Yeah, I'm fine. I've been to most of the recent games, I think, and it had quite a good weekend up in Oldham. Went to a few hostelries, as you mentioned. Got an away point at Oldham, not an easy place to go to. Weather was miserable, but that was
Always
pretty much
in Oldham.
expected. And Oldham had a reputation, I think, when they were in the league, of having the coldest football ground in the league, Boundary Park. So we were kind of, well equipped with different layers of clothing to fend off the cold. It wasn't too bad. It was a bit cold and wet, but there wasn't much wind, which did help.
Yeah, that's what gets it. I think there was one couple of years, a little while ago, that we went and everyone was expecting it to be freezing cold. It was a month that was expected to be cold, and everyone would come back with, actually, it wasn't as cold as we thought it was going to be. So
that was three seasons ago. We went up there in January. It was called off at short notice, you might remember. It was rescheduled for a Tuesday night towards the end of March, and actually it was a balmy couple of days up there. The weather was really rather pleasant.
Yeah,
and we won 3-1, so it was good couple of days.
Even better. So I gave one question for the knowing me, knowing you. Can't even remember if you saw it or not on the invite, but I'll come back to it in 2 seconds and ask it.
I did see it 5 minutes ago, so I have got an answer in mind. Yeah.
Excellent. Here's the jingle. So the idea of this is to just delve into a little bit more of everyone and find out little things and try and connect everyone. So what is one thing that you've learned from following Sutton United that you think others could benefit from? So this is quite wide ranging, but what is it you've learned that others could benefit?
Yeah, I would say don't read too much into recent results. I think there's a tendency, if we win a couple of games, to say, we're going to push for the playoffs now. If we lose a couple, we could get sucked into a relegation battle. Football's really that simple. The form is Mercurial. You can easily lose a couple, then win a couple, as we've seen this season. Really, the form that's important is the form over the season or over most of the season. And form over a few games doesn't really tell you much about where your team's going to end up in May.
I feel like you might be talking directly to me there. But yeah, it's one of those that you've got to look at it over a period of time and the improvements or lack of improvement. But yeah, what's your answers? What have you learned from following Sutton United that others could benefit from? And yeah, tag us at Sutton Podcast and let us know. So club news, we haven't got as many as last week, where I managed, I think, a good 25, 30 minutes talking about nothing other than the game. But the women's team lost today 2-1. We drew Man United's under 21s. Are you expecting a big crowd for that? Is that going to make you think, oh, I'll give this competition a whirl? What are your thoughts on that, Mark?
Well, I think Man United are probably a bigger draw than any of the other under 21 sides we've played so far, and that includes Spurs, of course. So I'd expect quite a big crowd for that one. I've not been to any of the National League Cup matches myself so far this season. I probably won't go to this one. So it's a competition that doesn't really excite me, I'm afraid. It just seems very artificial to me. I can't get motivated even for this one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's a good draw for us insofar as they're going to have a big fan base in London, and people don't necessarily get to see Man United that often. So we'll get that side of it. But yeah, I still fail to understand how a minimum of 4 games replaces a possible FA Cup replay. But yeah, let us know what you guys think of the Man United game. It should be a big crowd. Hopefully, it'll make me come out of the competition making some money, if not just breaking even. You were at the Steve's team talk on Tuesday night as well.
I was.
Yeah. What did you think of that? How did you sort of feel that came across?
Yeah, it was quite revealing. Unfortunately, I was sat at the back, as you might have noticed, and Steve wasn't using a microphone, and he's not the clearest of speakers, I think it's fair to say. So unfortunately, I missed some of the stuff that he said, which did, from what I could hear, sound quite interesting. But what I did hear was worth the trip down for the evening. He did say there are a few things that he didn't want to go out of that room. So obviously things that shouldn't be shared on a public forum. But what was interesting, and I think can be revealed, is he explained why we lost to Hartlepool in the previous game. And there were various factors, but one of them was that Hartlepool started with a formation they hadn't used at all so far this season, as far as he was aware. Obviously, they promoted Lynn Britt, first team manager, in place of Lenny Lawrence, whose first game in charge. And he tried something different that they hadn't done before. And that basically meant a lot of the planning for that game that Stephen had done was out the window, because they just put out a completely unexpected formation.
And
3-5-2.
Yeah, some of the personnel, he was like, "Oh, this is a real danger man," and they're not even in the squad.
Yeah.
And it's. I mean, we was talking to Rory and Claire. We kind of hinted at this, or we stumbled on it, whichever you prefer. That little things can completely throw the whole tempo. So it must be difficult if you've planned certain things. Yes, you might want to tweak this and that, but if something's been planned on, this is definitely happening, and then none of it happens, it must be really difficult to kind of think on the fly and change your approach a little bit. And as we've said many times, it's a young bunch. Yes, they've been playing football for years, but sort of youth kids football. But yeah, I found it really, really interesting, and I did think a few people would come out of that room with a slightly different opinion, because I know he seems sometimes quite aloof and not caring, but I think he showed a side the other day, that people were like, "Oh no, actually, he actually really does care about the club, and it really is important to him."
There's no doubt he takes the job very seriously. You could tell that a lot of planning goes into the preparation for each match, and there's the analysis afterwards, what went right, what went wrong, and there's a lot of examination of videos of the match, picking out things that the team did well, picking out things they didn't do so well, and that happens with every match, or certainly every important match, every league match. And it's clear that Steve puts in a lot of hours each week, including weekends, obviously, to prepare as best as he can. But I'm sure other managers at this level are doing much the same. And the question I could have asked but didn't is there anything that gives us a bit of an edge, an extra 5-10% over some of those other clubs? That's something for another day, perhaps.
Yep. The only other real club news is we did some contract extensions this week. We've tied down Tyler Arduino, Alex Kirk, and Sergio Lucy. I can't remember who was or wasn't on 1 year, 2 years at the start of the summer, so I'm sure there'll be more to come, but others that might not come may already be on a 2-year as well. So, but that's good news that we're already planning and putting steps in place for next season. And it looks like the contract situation, what they've done is they've signed them for one year with 1 year extensions and so on. So we shouldn't get that problem of people just being able to say, right, see you later. No real news for me. Otherwise, I've just been mad busy. I had some spare time today. You may notice that in a little while. What was your thought on the lineup and what was your expectations going into the game? I mean, it was good to see Coley back in the squad and noticed then that Tyler was dropped to the bench. I should have gone with French on the bench. But what was your what was your thoughts on the lineup and what was your expectations of the game?
Well, I thought it'd be a tough game. Obviously, Oldham are fourth and they'd already won at our place this season. It didn't turn out to be perhaps quite as testing a match as it could have been. Although I think Oldham were missing quite a few players through injury. They weren't at full strength. I listened to their manager Mickey Mellon's pre-match interview. He's a bit of a miserable guy, but you'd say they've got a lot of players out. But I thought we could maybe get a draw there. I wasn't really expecting us to win, which of course we didn't. As for the lineup, you mentioned French. I mean, that was a big surprise. Tyler French didn't start. I don't know what the thinking was there, but as somebody pointed out on the Planet, we've got two long distance away games in the space of 4 days. Gateshead are coming up on Tuesday, of course. And maybe there's a bit of squad rotation going on there, and maybe Frenchie was just given a bit of a rest. He did come on for the last few minutes, but maybe he will start on Tuesday. But as I said, I think the three at the back who we did start with all played very well, an average age of 21. So, and they were up against some pretty experienced, attackers in the Oldham front line. So they did very well.
Yeah, and I think you brought to our attention. Jack was in Team of the Week.
Yeah.
Which must boost his confidence a little bit. He's come in done well. Although Steve, again, I think the phrase was decided to put it in the back of his own net last week.
Yes.
How do you feel about him? And I mean, there was rumours a few weeks ago that other sides further up the pyramid were looking at him.
I mean,
Jack's
only 19, of course, but he is tipped to play at a higher level, perhaps even a much higher level. I think, to be frank, I think Tyler French is a National League standard defender. He's perfectly good enough for this level of football, but I don't think he's going to be playing much higher up. Whereas I think Jack Taylor and probably Alex Kirk could play already in EFL, in League Two, possibly even higher. I think they are probably destined for higher things. Possibly Bezalt as well. I mean, he's been playing well. I'm a little bit surprised that Bromley let him come to us. I think he's been a breath of fresh air since he joined us, and he can play in a number of different positions, of course, as well, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know his contract situation, but I think we should all be bigging him up for the whole of the rest of the season, because obviously if he is available, we want him to feel like he's just going to come home. That would be nice. I mean, it wasn't a game of lots of chances.
No.
I think Has said it wasn't the worst 0-0 that he's ever seen, but it was a 0-0, and then didn't elaborate, because I think the Salford game a few years ago where they messed up the kickoff a couple of times was the worst 0-0 I've ever seen. But what was your view on the game? Again, an Oldham fan had put up with that is probably the worst first half of football I've ever seen. I find a bit harsh.
I mean, the Oldham fans obviously disappointed. They probably felt they should be beating Sutton, especially having won at our place back in October. But if you're playing for this level, a big club like Oldham, ex-Premier League, let's not forget, if you're going toe-to-toe with them and they're not having the better of the game, then however scrappy or unattractive the game might be, that gives you a good feeling. We're matching these guys. We're arguably even a bit better than them. So although the game wasn't great as a spectacle and wasn't a great experience for the home fans, I think for the Sutton fans, 126 of us, I think, were up there. to see us come away from Boundary Park with a point, I think was gratifying, because we had won there on our previous visit back in 2022, I think it was. But yeah, we're undefeated in 2 visits to Boundary Park, so that's something to be quite proud of.
No, absolutely. I mean, there was one, I think it was in the second half. Vaz had a shot that came out of absolutely nowhere, and
Yeah.
I think the keeper was just protecting his face. I don't think he actually was saving it at all. I think he was just putting his hands up to stop it, because that was a definite going to rip the back of the net off. I mean, did you see that in real time? Did you see what actually happened?
I can dimly recall. It was the other end, I think.
Yeah.
So I don't remember it terribly well, but I have a dim recollection of that. I mean, there were quite a few sort of rasping shots on both sides that were kind of off target. But neither keeper was particularly tested. I think each keeper made one decent save in the game. That was about it. But the defences were largely on top. And most of the shooting was from range, like the shot you just mentioned. Let's have a go from 25, 30 yards. But there weren't many chances from within the box.
Well, with that said, on the sort of Sutton fans channel WhatsApp thing, they voted Jack Sims as man of the match. I don't know, Steve. He made one good save right at the end. I think it was from James Norwood. Apart from that, he didn't have a great deal to do. But I would make probably either Alex Kirk or Jack Taylor man of the match. I think they were both excellent. I thought Lewis Simba had a decent game in midfield, but I thought the midfield missed Finley Barbrook. There wasn't a lot of sort of decent through balls from central midfield. We were relying largely on balls on the wings to set up Will Davis, and he didn't have a lot of service in that game. No, I mean, I'm wondering if the Sims vote was for last week at home. We had a lot of chances, and he kept in it. And you just can't have your goalkeeper as man of the match at home. I mean, someone put up a post in the Facebook group, and the Oldham fans are claiming we are the dirtiest side that they've ever seen. And I'm not. You could only have been to a few matches, because we're not. We're pretty far from the dirtiest side that we've seen. I mean, to you, I know not everyone likes it, but is it good that we're kind of learning these skills to go, okay, well, this is how you win matches these days? Because there were games earlier in the season where we were perhaps a little bit naive on some of the things. And now we're a bit more streetwise.
I think that's right. No, it wasn't. There were 2 yellow cards to each side. We've seen games this season with half a dozen or more yellow cards. So it wasn't a dirty game. It was a little bit physical at times, as you'd expect. But, it certainly wasn't. It wasn't a particularly attractive game. It wasn't a dirty game.
Yeah, I mean, Norwood did get quite irritated, and there was a point where I thought he's going to get himself wound up too much here. So I think he's right. But the ref, I mean, a lot of them were talking about how poor the ref was letting things go, and the fact there was only 2 yellow cards might bear out that thought process. But did it seem like he was being too lenient, or?
No, I don't think so. No.
Fair enough.
I thought I was sitting in front of Mark Frake, and obviously there was the odd criticism shouted out at the ref, but by and large, I think the impression was that he was pretty average, actually, for this level of football. We've had better, we've had worse. Yeah.
I mean, us winning probably helped sway that. So I'm actually stealing a points of view thing, because no one actually responded, but I've had a little play around, and we've now got a new jingle. So we're going to come to the points of views in just a sec. I'm going to have to fix that in post. There is a new jingle. I will put it on afterwards.
It's time to have you say what's good, bad, okay, on the pitch or not. We'll talk about the lot, your thoughts, your views on the latest news. It's your points of views.
So, Anthony, asked in the group, what is it we're missing at the moment in people's minds? So, what do we need from this group to add to this group to possibly push on for a playoff run at this moment in time?
Yeah, I don't think there's an easy answer to that question. I mean, experience, but we're getting that. We'll be more experienced next season. I think possibly another forward to take a bit of the weight off Will Davis's shoulders. He's obviously been playing very well lately. Before yesterday, 9 goals in 9 matches. But you can't rely too much on one forward. And if he's missing for whatever reason, we need somebody else to step up and score goals. And I know Steve likes playing with a lone striker with a lot of support from the wings and advanced midfielders. But I think we could do with another striker. There was a bit of surprise that we let Matt Rush go, who's been scoring for Boreham Wood since he left us. But yeah, I think another forward. But I think we've got most positions covered pretty well at the moment. It's just a question of steady progress. I don't think we're going to go up this season. I think we'd be lucky to make the playoffs, frankly, but you never know. Our running doesn't look too challenging, so we could still do that. But yeah, let's just see where we are later in the year. I'm sure Steve will be looking to bring in some other players in the summer. He's already dropped hints that there might be some departures. So yeah. I think we can expect some incomings during the close season.
Yeah, I mean, we know there's definitely going to be some departures because
of the lone players. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my answer to that question, the immediate thing that came to my mind was, what do we need is time. And you sort of said the experience, which is the same thing, time and experience will bring it closer. So, yeah, I mean, there was no other real questions put in, which is annoying, but never mind. We will rapidly go through this because, as we said before we started, there's not a lot to go through. The good, the bad, and the funny. So hopefully this is going to work. And I've speeded it up and changed the ending of that one. Yay! So what was good about the day yesterday? Again, on the pitch, off the pitch, what doesn't matter.
Well, I've already touched on it, but I think the defensive performance, I think, was certainly very good. That's the thing that I think comes first to my mind.
Mm-hmm. And what was bad on the day?
Well, can I go back to the night before?
Yeah,
a couple of us got a cab out to a pub at a place called Royton, which is north of Oldham on the edge of the moors. We got up there hoping to get something to eat there, but it was fully booked for food. So we had a couple of beers there. Oh, there's a bus that stops outside, but that'll take us back into Oldham. So waiting for the bus, I was tracking it on my phone, and it was moving towards us, and then it just stopped, and it just wasn't moving. I have no idea why. And it was a bitterly cold evening. The wind was whipping off the moors. It was an easterly, and we thought, oh God, how are we going to get back? Then my mate Peter spotted a cab, just dropped somebody off outside the pub. Are you free? Yes. So he took us back into Oldham. We went for a nice curry. But that was a sort of 10-15 minute spell out there on the cold, waiting for the bus, which was pretty bad.
Waiting for a ghost bus on the moors. Okay, that could have been a whole different story. Well, that could also be your funny on the day. But what is your funny for the day? Or
well, I suppose it's almost a funny. The same day, Friday, actually, we were in another pub earlier, Chadderton, which is on the edge of Oldham, and we walked in, and it was quite quiet. We got chatting to the governor, and he said, "Oh, there's somebody you might like to meet, one of our locals." So he got on his blower, and this guy wandered in, a guy called Pete, who was originally from Sutton. He was a Palace fan, actually, but he'd moved up to the Oldham area 40 years ago. He'd still got his South London accent. So it was quite funny. So we just sat down with him for a pint, we chewed over a few things, talked about football as you do. But yeah, it was quite funny to meet somebody from Sutton up in Chadderton, the last place you'd expect to meet a Suttonite, and just he just wandered into the pub because he's local. It was quite funny.
You got the back call. It was probably saying it all week. Oh, I used to come from Sutton. They're playing next week. So let me know if anyone comes in. But yeah, let us know what your good, bad, and funny was. Let me know what you like a new theme tune or the reduced tune. So very quickly, let's look ahead to Tuesday night. Another long trip. The players will be knackered. But what do you feel the Gateshead? It's going to be a slightly different type of game. How do you see it going against Gateshead?
I think it's worth mentioning what ludicrous scheduling to send us to Gateshead on a Tuesday night in February. Of course, they had to come down to our place on a Tuesday night back in the autumn. So I don't know how on earth we end up with these ridiculous fixtures. And Maidenhead, I understand, have got midweek trips to Oldham, Rochdale, and Altrincham this season. Well, they've had some of them already. So some of the scheduling just seems to be bizarre. But anyway, let's move on from that. Yeah, it'd be a different sort of game, I think, from Oldham. I think Oldham are a fairly sort of direct side under Mellon. As we saw back in October, Gateshead are more of a kind of possession-based side. They move the ball around nicely. They're probably a bit more like us in the way they play. So I'm sure Steve's preparation and team selection for that match will be different than for the Oldham game. I gather that, like Oldham, they've got a lot of players injured, but I think they've got an even worse injury crisis than Oldham. I think almost their entire defence is out, first choice defence is out. But I'm reading the non-league paper report of their match against Altrincham, which is at home. They lost 1-0, but apparently they played pretty well and were unlucky to lose that game. I think they hit the bar on the post during the game, so they won't be easy opposition by any means. So I think we'd need to be pretty close to our best to get anything from that game. It'd be a very different atmosphere because, Oldham Boundary Park, you had 5,000 plus in the stadium. The stadium was, half full. At Gateshead, you might just get four figures. The stadium will be about a tenth full. Of course, the fans were a long way from the pitch there. There's no atmosphere there at all. So it have a very different feel to it, that game, than yesterday's. But yeah, I think we're capable of getting something from the game, but it won't be easy.
No, I mean, if we were, I know some people were disappointed, thought we could have got something more from the Oldham game, but if we managed to win at Gateshead, you just take 4 points from those two games all day. But I mean, how many do you reckon we're going to have up there? I know we had.
I'm going.
Sub 100?
I don't know. Maybe 30 or 40.
Okay, we will see. It's half term, so some of those young might fancy a trip.
I know 4 people that are going for sure, but I'm sure there'll be a lot more than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think there's a coach going, is there? I can't quite remember.
I think so. I think I heard Francis talk about a coach going.
I know Francis isn't going because I talked to her older and she said she wasn't going to Gateshead.
Oh, but, okay, maybe that was a few days ago and there's no coach now, so I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. But I know you don't play the prediction league, but what are you going to stick your neck out as the prediction?
Yeah, well, I'll go for the safe. I'd have to have a 1-1.
1-1.
I'll be quite happy with that, actually. Yeah.
I'm going to go for 1-0 to Sutton. Keep the clean sheet going. Start winning again. Yeah, it's good. It's good. We're just blind. We're always going to win. Right. Super quick that was. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
We're going to wrap up this episode of Sutton Podcast. As always, we appreciate everyone's attention and feedback. Get involved in a Knowing Me, Knowing You segment. What have you learned from following Sutton United that you think others could benefit from? Follow, like, share this episode and at Sutton Podcast generally. Like and subscribe on the preferred platforms. Give us the thumbs up on YouTube, etc. And we will be back after the Gateshead game on Wednesday. And if memory serves, I have Harry and Sarah on. And hopefully I've got that right. But we will definitely have a podcast with someone. Let us know your thoughts on the game. As always, thank you to our sponsors, Lucky Star Gin. Big thank you to Mark today for flying solo. And thanks for listening. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Sutton Podcast. Take care, and we'll catch up soon. Bye-bye.
United!